Springfield, at the tail end of December, was bone-chillingly cold, with wind cutting through the moldy alleyways like a reminder of every loss Rose Parker had ever endured. The 38-year-old woman had once been the chief accountant for Castellano Construction, one of the biggest firms in the region's urban redevelopment sector. She used to have her own office with glass windows overlooking Mayor Square, signed dozens of documents a day, and believed in what folks called administrative justice. All of that crumbled after a meeting that lasted less than 5 minutes. You're making false accusations against the leadership. Without concrete evidence, I'm forced to terminate your employment. The voice of Mr. Gates, the HR director, still echoed in Rose's ears every night. As she stood up, the folder of documents she'd prepared to report the misconduct was swept to the floor. "I've already sent the evidence to the Office of Financial Oversight," she'd say, but no one seemed to want to touch it. Everyone stayed silent, as if they'd never known who she was. The next day, she got an email terminating her contract for violating professional ethics and leaking internal information. That same day, her employment record was flagged red in the construction industry system. From that moment on, no company would even glance at the name Rose Parker. Her husband had left in 2021. Her 3 kids, Aaron, 14, Martha, 11, and little Nick, just 8, were suddenly dragged into an endless spiral of hardship. She could no longer afford the rent on their apartment in the West Side District and was evicted without mercy. "You backstabbing trash. I heard you sold people out to the media for money. I'm not letting you stay here one more day." Those were the words of their landlord, Mrs. Marilyn, the same woman who'd once invited her to share New Year's cake. Rose had no options left. She took her kids and moved into an abandoned garage in Old Town, a place that used to be a car repair shop. The walls were crumbling, the tin roof leaked, and the cement floor was cracked. She arranged 2 makeshift pallets and gathered cardboard boxes to make beds for the kids. No electricity, no hot water, just the smell of motor oil and darkness. During the day, the whole family went out to scavenge paper and bottles to sell. To Mr. Bill, a hunched-over scrapyard owner who looked like a walking question mark. Rose tied her hair back, wore a torn face mask, and donned a wool coat that had once been designer but was now just a pile of frayed yarn. Every time her kids glanced longingly at the bakery window, she had to turn her face away. Once she went to ask for a housekeeping job at the home of Mrs. Ellen, a wealthy woman in the upscale Greenwood Estates neighborhood. Rose waited over 20 minutes at the iron gate before a housemaid came out. "The lady told me to say, we don't hire anyone with a history of legal trouble. She doesn't want any potential legal complications. But I've never been convicted of anything. I just need a job to support my kids. I'm sorry." Rose stood frozen, then turned away. The automatic gate closed behind her like a final period at the end of her sentence. That night, Aaron, the oldest, came home with blood oozing from his arm. "Mom, I slipped trying to grab a metal sheet behind the cemetery wall. I told you not to climb around there. I saw people throw away some stuff that still looked useful." While bandaging his wound, Rose held back tears. It was a long gash, not too deep, but it needed disinfecting. She carried her son in her arms, running nearly 2 miles to the nearest public health clinic. "We can't admit him without valid insurance. He's hurt. Please. I'm sorry." "That's the policy." She left and ran to a second clinic. The answer was the same. The third one was already closed. She sat down on the cold stone steps, cradling Aaron's head in her lap. His eyes were shut from exhaustion, but blood still trickled down his wrist. A strange woman walked by and silently handed her a piece of gauze. Not a word was spoken. The next day, Martha came down with a fever. She couldn't go out collecting recyclables with Rose and Nick. Rose carried her to the pharmacy. "The cheapest fever medicine is $6. Got insurance?" "No." "Well then, please, I'll..." Pay you later. No can do. This is a pharmacy, not a charity. Rose left in silence. A gust of wind cut through her collar, making her skin go numb. She saw a pair of rusty scissors near the trash bin. In a moment, with no thought, she cut off her long hair, stuffed it into a bag, and returned to the pharmacy. Are you crazy? Please. I just need one fever pill. The pharmacist stood still for a few seconds, then tossed a blister pack onto the counter. This one time, but don't come back. Rose nodded, too afraid to even say thank you. One rainy night, water dripped through the tin roof like the ticking of a clock counting down to collapse. She sat curled up in a corner of the garage, watching her 3 children huddled under thin blankets. Nick whispered, "Mom, will we get to go back to school tomorrow?" She didn't answer. Inside her was only a black void. She had studied properly, lived with integrity. But now people called her a liar, a troublemaker, a traitor who bit the hand that fed her. One afternoon, she ran into Lucy, a former co-worker on the street. "Lucy, please, can you tell someone what really happened to me? I just need someone to speak up." "Rose, you're digging your own grave. Everyone's scared you'll drag them down too. But you know I'm telling the truth. That's exactly why I can't say anything." Lucy walked away, leaving Rose with a voice hoarse, like her throat had been crushed. Rose used to think she was strong, but now, every step felt like a sentence. Her mind spun in a storm of helplessness and humiliation. One night, she couldn't take it anymore. After her kids had fallen asleep, she found an old rope hanging from a rusted hook in the garage. She tied a noose, climbed onto a paint can, and tied the rope to a ceiling beam. Her hands shook. She closed her eyes. "Mom," Nick's voice, murmuring in sleep. "Mom, don't be scared. I dreamed you disappeared." She let go of the rope, collapsed to the floor, sobbing like she had never known what crying really meant. The morning in Springfield was still covered in thick white fog, dense like a layer of dust that would never clear from Rose's mind. She pulled on her torn gloves, pushed a small cart welded from an old stroller frame, and made her way through alleyways. Her 3 children still slept in the garage. Aaron stayed behind today because his arm hadn't fully healed. She crossed the Henry Evans Bridge, heading toward the wealthy neighborhood near Jesuit Park. There, people often threw out things that were better than anything she could afford, even back when she was a chief accountant. As she turned onto Lincoln Avenue, Rose saw a truck parked in front of the largest, whitest stone mansion on the block. The gate was wide open. In the yard, 3 men in coveralls were loading trash onto the truck. One of them swore, "What the hell is all this crap?" Herman must be redoing the whole house for the new year. That name made Rose freeze. Herman Gallagher, former mayor of Springfield. The man she once suspected was at the center of a budget embezzlement scandal during his time in office. And the man she believed had ordered the shutdown of her whistleblower file years ago. One of the workers dragged a large red carpet across the sidewalk. The carpet was face down, but its edges were embroidered with shimmering gold lace. Rose slowed down. She couldn't believe her eyes. The carpet was intact, clean, yet thrown out like a rag. "These guys don't know the value of anything," another worker said. "This one's probably imported from Europe. Looks nicer than a 5-star hotel's carpet. What's the point of keeping it?" The guy said, "Toss everything. Clear it top to bottom." Hearing that, Rose bowed her head and pushed her cart closer to the pile of garbage. She pretended to pick up some aluminum cans, then glanced at the carpet. No one was paying attention. She walked over quickly, rolled up the rug, and tied it tight with a plastic strap she always kept with her. On the way back, her cart felt unusually heavy. The rug was nearly 6 feet long, weighed down by thick fabric and years of dust. She stopped to rest under a tree and brushed part of the carpet with her hand. A detail revealed itself and made her heart skip a beat. The seal of the United States, embroidered in fine gold thread. "What the hell is this?" she whispered. Back at the garage, she called Aaron to help her spread the rug on the concrete floor. Martha and Nick sat nearby, curious. "Mama, is that a king's carpet?" Martha asked, her eyes wide. "No, I don't know anymore," Rose replied, doubt flooding her heart. She took a wet cloth and wiped the center of the rug. The layer of dust came off, revealing intricate patterns, the colors still vivid. But something made her freeze. A dark brown spot on the lower edge and another smear near the right border. Faint, but they looked like dried blood. Rose sat still. A deep, indescribable unease rose within her. After feeding the kids some dry bread, she turned on her old phone. The signal flickered, but after half an hour of searching, she uncovered something astonishing. This type of rug, with golden embroidery and the national seal, was only used for high-level state ceremonies, like diplomatic receptions or formal congressional sessions. She searched further and came across a photo from a 2019 event in Boston. A red carpet, almost identical, lined the steps of the state capitol. Rose frowned. Why would someone like Herman have a carpet like that? And why throw it away so quietly? Aaron, sitting beside her, whispered, "Mom, what if he's hiding something?" "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." The next day, she brought a photo of the rug on her phone and went to see Evan Carter, a former accounting student who was now interning at Springfield University. They had once had a good relationship, even though he was nearly 10 years younger. "Rose, are you okay?" Evan asked, hesitating when he saw her worn-out clothes. "No, but I need your help with something." She showed Evan the photo and told him the whole story. He stared intently at the screen, then typed a few words into his computer. After 10 minutes of research, he said, "Rose, this kind of carpet is indeed used only for government ceremonial events. I even found the material description from a public procurement contract. The fabric code matches what's in your photo." "Then why was it tossed out on the street like garbage?" Evan shook his head. "No idea, but if you ask me, I'd guess maybe that event didn't officially exist." Rose felt the blood drain from her face. "What do you mean?" "Maybe someone staged a fake ceremony, purchased this rug through a public contract, laundered the funds, and then got rid of the evidence." She left the university with her mind spinning. That idea struck like lightning through the injustice she had buried for nearly a year. If Herman had staged a fake ceremony, then the urban redevelopment embezzlement was just the tip of the iceberg. That night, she went back over the list of government events in Springfield from the past 3 years. None matched the rug's description. But when she checked the local news from April 12th of the previous year, she saw a photo from an event called Reception for the Midwest Regional Advisory Delegation. No video, just a few pictures, and most of the floor was obscured, but the golden trim on the carpet's edge was identical. Rose pressed her fingers to her forehead, trying to stay calm. She didn't know what to do next, but something deep inside told her she had just brushed against a much larger trap. Martha whispered, "Mom, why do you keep staring at that carpet?" "I think someone's been lying to this whole city." That night, Rose tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Wind howled through the holes in the garage roof like whispers of warning. She pulled the rug close, folded it carefully, and hid it in an old compartment behind the trash bin. She had to protect it at all costs. The next morning, as she took Nick out to collect scrap metal, she noticed a strange car parked 10 meters from the garage. Inside were 3 men in black coats and sunglasses. One of them was smoking, eyes fixed on her. A voice echoed in her head. "They know." 2 days had passed since Rose discovered the unusual signs on the red carpet with the U.S. seal. She lived in a half-awake, half-dreaming state, constantly afraid someone would break into the garage and tear everything apart. The men in dark clothing hadn't returned, but she knew they were watching. One gloomy morning, with light rain falling, Rose was serving watery porridge to the kids when she heard a knock on the garage's metal door. Not loud, but firm. "Aaron, go hide in the back." "But Mom, quiet, take your brother and sister." She walked toward the door, her palms slick with sweat. When she opened it, 3 men stood there. The one in the middle was tall, bald, wearing a charcoal leather jacket. One of the others wore dark sunglasses despite the cloudy skies. "You, Rose Parker. I don't know who you are." They said nothing. The bald man raised his hand, and in a flash pulled a black fabric sack over her head. Rose struggled, but they held her tight. The stench of leather and sweat choked her. She heard a car engine start. The sack jolted with each bump in the road. She had no idea where they were taking her. About 15 minutes later, the vehicle stopped. She was dragged out, led across a gravel path. A shove knocked her to her knees. When the sack was pulled off her head, dim light came into view. They were in an old warehouse surrounded by an empty field. No signs, no people. In front of her stood a rusted metal table. One of the men stepped forward and tossed a stack of photos onto it. Rose froze. They were pictures of Aaron, Martha, and Nick picking up scraps, eating bread, sleeping in the garage. There was even one of Martha going to the bathroom behind a crumbling wall. "We know your every move and those brats too," the bald man said in a low, hoarse voice. "What do you want?" "Nothing. Just want you to cooperate." Rose stared at him, her heart sinking into her gut. "You're holding something you shouldn't. If you keep it, your kids might get hit by a car, get kidnapped, or just vanish." She said nothing. "There are things people like you shouldn't touch. You're just proving I'm right. Why else would you threaten a jobless mother?" The man smirked, then pulled out a printed document. "This is a waiver of ownership. You sign it, confirming you don't have, never had, and know nothing about the red carpet. Sign it, and you'll be left alone." "I don't have anything to sign. No signature, no peace." A heavy punch slammed into Rose's stomach. She collapsed, coughing violently. The man with the sunglasses stepped forward, grabbed her chin, and pressed a pen into her hand. "One signature, Parker. Just one." With trembling hands, she took the pen. But as the man turned slightly to grab his phone, Rose slipped her other hand into the pocket of her coat where she had hidden her old phone. One quick press, she snapped a secret photo of the documents and the men's faces. They noticed instantly. A brutal kick knocked the phone from her hand. The bald man stomped on it, smashing it to pieces. Even the homeless play dirty now. They hit her again in the shoulder and threw her into the car. This time, they didn't bother covering her head. On the ride back, Rose looked through the small window. Barren fields, broken power poles, rusted fences, no houses, no one to hear her scream. The brakes screeched. She was shoved out of the car, face first into the dirt near the garage. Cold wind whipped her face. They said nothing, just silently. Got in the car and drove off. Aaron opened the garage door, eyes wide with panic. "Mom, where were you?" "I was taken, but I'm okay. I'm back now." She dragged herself inside, the pain so sharp she had to bite her lip not to cry out. Nick sobbed when he saw the bruise on her cheek. "Mom, did someone beat you up?" "It's okay. I just tripped and fell." She pulled her 3 children close and whispered, "We have to leave this place. We have to hide everything and don't talk to strangers." That very night, Rose dug through the broken phone. The screen was shattered, but the memory card was intact. She wrapped it in tape and hid it inside an empty cookie tin. The next morning, she returned to see Evan. "You were beaten?" Evan asked, alarmed by the bruises. "They tried to take my phone, but I got a picture before they noticed." "What?" "Help me recover the memory card, please." Evan inserted it into his computer with the care of someone handling a live explosive. After a long moment, he turned to her. "Here. It is, one photo. Blurry, but you can see 2 faces in some documents. Can you store it somewhere safe? Yes, but you have to promise to leave Springfield. This isn't about financial fraud anymore. Rose nodded. She knew Evan was right. Ever since the beating, this was no longer just about whistleblowing. It was about survival. Back at the garage, she began organizing everything. She packed the most important items into a backpack: her old passport, the kids' vaccination records, hospital papers, and a carefully folded red carpet. Martha whispered as she watched her mother preparing the bags. "Mom, where are we going?" "I don't know yet, but I can't let anyone take us away." That night, as Rose stepped outside to take out the trash, she spotted a paper envelope lying silently in front of the garage door. No name, no return address. She opened it. Inside was a clear surveillance photo. A small handwritten note read, "If you want your daughter to stay safe, forget everything. The carpet belongs to someone else now." Rose trembled. She clenched the paper. This time, they were threatening her girl. She didn't sleep that night. The cold wind blew through the tin roof, but the chill inside her was far worse. She knew now there was no turning back. Rose no longer felt the weather. Whether it was freezing or sweltering, the only thing that ran through her veins was fear, not for herself, but for her 3 children. They were too young to understand terms like false ceremony or budget diversion, but they were smart enough to sense the emptiness growing in their mother's eyes day by day. Ever since the abduction and death threat, Rose had hidden the carpet and the memory card in separate places. She didn't trust anyone anymore. Evan had a copy of the photo, but even with him, she kept her distance. Once again, she stepped into a silent war between truth and lies. Life and death. She started reaching out to old contacts, people who had worked in government agencies in Springfield. In her phone book, she found a name: Stephen Rubin, a veteran journalist who had been forced out after investigating the city's suspicious expenses for public festivals. She remembered seeing him at a press conference years ago. She tried calling. "Hello." A deep male voice, followed by a dry cough. "Is this Stephen Rubin?" "Yes, who's calling?" "This is Rose Parker. I used to be the chief accountant at Castellano Construction. I think I have something you'll want to hear." There was silence on the line. "I remember you. Fired for false complaints, right?" "Yes, but I have evidence. A rug, a fake ceremony." He agreed to meet at a small café called La Nubie Grise in the old quarter. At 4 o'clock, Rose walked in, wearing a hat and scarf, face partially hidden. Stephen sat in the corner, thin and tired-looking. "Did you bring the carpet?" "No, but I have a photo. And I remember the date of the ceremony, April 12th, last year." Stephen raised his eyebrows and opened his old laptop. He pulled up the city's public archive. There's only a brief press release for that day. Reception for the Midwest Regional Advisory Delegation. No press access, no videos. Any photos, just one look. The image appeared. A ceremonial scene inside a city hall chamber. 4 people stood in a row, the American flag behind them. And just as Rose remembered, the edge of the red carpet matched perfectly. "It's angled." Deliberately avoiding a full shot of the rug, Stephen noted. "Didn't anyone question it?" "No, because no one had proof," Rose whispered. "Now they do." Stephen studied her for a long time. Herman was the most powerful mayor this city ever had. He's got someone in every department. "What are you planning?" "I want to go public, but I need the right moment. First, I have to confirm. Did that event actually take place?" Stephen nodded. "I'll help. I know someone who printed the invitations for that event. Her name is Mary Clark. She works at the Montoro print shop." Rose went to see Mary the next day. A woman in her late 30s, she spoke softly and always seemed a little nervous. "Invitations?" "Oh, I remember a strange order. Last minute, they ordered 200 copies but never mailed them anywhere." "Never mailed?" "They said it was for internal distribution only." No need for postal service. But the weird thing was, there was no official event code. I've done lots of jobs for official functions. That was the first time I'd seen something like that. Do you still have a sample? No, but I still have the original file on my home computer. You want a printout? Could I get a copy? I'll pay you. No need for money, but are you sure you want to get involved in this? Do you have kids, Mary? Yes, a little girl. Then you'll understand why I can't stay quiet. The next day, Rose received a scanned copy of the invitation. Event title, location, time, all matching the date Stephen had found. But there was no government logo, no mayor's signature, no official reference number. Rose saved it onto a USB drive and hid it in the same place as the phone's memory card. That night, when she returned to the garage, she discovered her phone had been completely destroyed. Screen shattered, SIM slot pried open. Someone had entered while she was gone. The kids were safe, but Nick said, "Some guys came by earlier, asking if you were home. I saw them through the peephole. They wore wool hats, 2 of them." Rose stood frozen. She knew her time was running out. That night, she lay holding her 3 children, staring up at the leaking ceiling. The light rain continued tapping the tin. Her mind spun with fragments. The carpet, the fake ceremony, the internal use invitation, the blurry photos from the memory card. It wasn't enough. She needed undeniable evidence. Rose made a decision. She would return to the original location of the event, the hall where the fake ceremony took place. That was the Fernandez Municipal Building, now repurposed as a records warehouse. The next day, she wore borrowed janitor clothes from a friend named Lance, who worked on the city sanitation crew. With a baseball cap, face mask, and a fake name badge, she slipped in during a shift change. The hallways were long and cold, the walls stained yellow with moisture. She turned left, heading to room 204, the former main assembly hall. The door was unlocked. Inside, dust-covered leather chairs and wooden tables. But in the light from the window, she saw what she needed. A faint outline of the old carpet still marked the floor. A cleaner rectangle of dust, perfectly shaped. She knelt down and lifted the current floor rug. On the underside, near the edge, was a faint brown stain, like dried blood, poorly cleaned. A chill ran down her spine. Rose pulled out the spare phone Evan had given her and snapped a photo. She knew if she moved quickly, she could get out before anyone noticed Dot as she walked back down the hallway. She passed a side corridor when she heard footsteps. 2 men in black suits were coming toward her. She lowered her head, pretending to be a cleaning worker, but one of them stopped. "Hey you, what team are you with?" "City Services." "I'm assigned to room 307. Your ID." "It's in the room. I'll get it right now." She walked fast, then broke into a run. A voice called after her, sharp and suspicious. But Rose dashed through the emergency exit, heart pounding, the photo still safe in her coat pocket. Back at the garage, she collapsed onto the floor, drenched in cold sweat. The kids crowded around, asking questions. She didn't answer. She knew one thing. She had come too far to turn back. In the days following the break-in at the Fernandez Municipal Building, Rose lived like a shadow. She only went outside before dawn and returned after the city fell asleep. People's stares grew strange. Perhaps she had become too thin, too worn, too ghost-like to seem fully alive. But it wasn't just the looks. Ominous signs began to appear. On Monday morning, when she opened the garage door, shattered glass was scattered across the cement floor. A large rock lay beside the old toy bin, wrapped in a scrap of paper with messy handwriting. "Don't think you can expose this city without paying the price." Aaron ran to her, panicked. "Mom, the cart. It's destroyed." Rose followed his finger. The 4 wheels had been slashed. The front axle snapped clean in half, like someone had used pliers. That old pushcart had been their only way to haul scrap to earn a few cents a day. She sat down and stroked Aaron's hair. "It's okay. I'll fix it." But inside, she knew they were tightening the noose, loop by loop, the very next day. Returning from the scrapyard, Rose panicked. Martha was gone. "Nick, where's your sister?" "She went to buy candy with Ms. Linda next door." "Ms. Linda went to Miami last week. Are you sure?" "Yes, but a man said he was Ms. Linda's friend. He asked Martha to go get candy." She dropped the bag and ran, calling her daughter's name in vain. She searched every intersection, every shop, every alley. No one had seen a brown-haired, bright-eyed little girl pass through. 1 hour passed, 2. When Rose stumbled back, nearly collapsing, she saw Martha curled up next to a trash bin near the garage. The girl was crying, her clothes streaked with dirt, her hands scraped. "Mom, I'm sorry. I thought he was your friend." Rose pulled her into her arms. She couldn't speak. She knew now this had been a warning. Next time Martha might not come back. That night, she sent the children to stay with Miss Paula, an old acquaintance who lived far in the southern part of the city. "Please, just a few days. I'll repay you." Miss Paula hesitated, face uneasy. "Rose, I've heard things. They say you're being investigated. Are you involved in politics?" "No, I just need to protect my children. I love your kids, I really do. But my husband said we shouldn't get involved in your situation." Rose went silent. She didn't beg. She knew she had nothing left to beg with. The children had to return to the garage. The next day, Rose noticed someone had tried to break the garage lock. It hadn't popped open, but the pry marks were clear. She didn't sleep that night. Every street noise jolted her upright. Early the next morning, she went to the local corner store to ask for bread. The owner, Alicia, looked at her like she had a disease. "Sorry, Rose, I can't let you buy on credit anymore. I'll pay everything back this afternoon. It's not about money. They say you're stirring up unrest." "Who says that, people?" "They say you're using your victim story to solicit illegal donations. I've never asked anyone for a single cent. Rose, I don't want trouble. Please don't come back." She walked out of the store like a ghost. In her head, one line buzzed. "I've never asked anyone for anything." But would anyone believe that? That night, the local news opened with a special bulletin, "Fraud Alert." A woman previously fired for ethical violations is now spreading false information, inciting the public, and using doctored images to defame former officials. Charitable donors are urged to be cautious. They showed an old company ID photo of Rose, expressionless. A red caption in the corner of the screen read, "Rose Parker, serial accuser." She stared, unblinking. Aaron sat beside her and whispered, "Mom, is that you?" "No, that's not who I am." "Then why are they saying that?" "Because they're scared I'm telling the truth." But the crowd doesn't listen to the truth. The next day, a group of people came to the garage neighborhood. Committee members accompanied by a reporter from the local TV station. "We're here to verify information connected to a recent petition. It appears you're disturbing public order." Rose stood at the doorway. "What do you want?" "Residents say you're exploiting children to gain sympathy and spreading fake news to undermine the government. I live here because no one else would take us in, and what I've said is the truth." The reporter began filming. "Then do you have any proof, Miss Parker?" She looked into the camera lens. Her chest tightened. She couldn't show the evidence. Not yet. It wasn't enough. If she revealed it now, everything would be destroyed. She answered slowly, "I'm not a liar, but the truth doesn't need to scream in the village square to be real." The crowd fell silent. Then they left, glancing back with a mix of pity and disdain. That night, the garage lost power. No warning, no explanation. Darkness fell like a grave. The children huddled under their old blankets. Martha whispered, "Mom, Are you leaving tomorrow? No, I won't leave you. But I heard you say that in your sleep. Rose didn't answer. She didn't know whether she'd spoken aloud or if her daughter had simply dreamed it, but the question cut her to the core. She opened the old bread cabinet empty. In her pocket, a single coin. The boiled potatoes from earlier that week had gone sour. She looked at each child's face. Hunger burned in their eyes. Cold turned their lips purple. Fear kept them clinging to her, not daring to stray. Outside, the world spun on with breaking news, polished articles, and backroom meetings among the powerful. Inside, 4 souls shivered. In the dark, Rose whispered like a confession, "Maybe tomorrow I'll have to go far away." In the days after the blackout, Rose entered the darkest stretch of her life. No light, no hope. Each morning, she checked to see if her children were still breathing, the cement floor cold as a tomb. Winds seeped through every crack in the roof, sinking into her spine, which had bent lower with every month lived as a woman the world had rejected. She hid the carpet deep inside an old tire compartment behind the scrap pile. The memory card and USB were no longer kept in the garage. She chose a new hiding spot, an abandoned cemetery on the outskirts of town. There, she dug a small hole and buried them. Every day, she returned to check, even though the path was slick with mud and dog droppings. One time, she contacted Gordon Bennett, a former colleague who used to oversee construction budgeting. Back in the day, Gordon had once burst out laughing when Rose called out the boss mid-meeting for manipulating cost estimates. "Rose, good God, you're still alive. I need help. I have real proof, the carpet, the invitation, photos of the hall. But if I go public now, they'll kill." "I believe you, but word is your name's been red flagged. There's an internal watch alert. Anyone who helps you could get burned. Gordon, I'm begging you. I've got a wife and kids." "Rose, I'm sorry." The call ended with a long beep and a silence as heavy as concrete. Rose stared at the screen of her old phone, then threw it to the ground. It shattered. She picked up the pieces, blood streaking her fingers. That day, the kids didn't go out collecting recyclables. Aaron had a slight fever, and Martha and Nick were too exhausted. She went alone. At the old market, where refugees often gathered, there was a dark-skinned old man named Elliot who sold rags. She asked him, "Do you know anyone who sells cheap medicine? Just fever relief." "Yeah, but you gotta trade something." "I have my hair. I'll cut it." He looked at her scorched, brittle hair and nodded. 30 minutes later, Rose returned with a small cloth bag. Inside were 4 cheap fever pills and 2 pieces of stale bread. Elliot handed her a handkerchief. No one said anything. No one needed to. Back at the garage, she dissolved the medicine in cold water and fed it to Aaron. His sweat poured like rain. She wiped his face with Elliot's handkerchief and sat up all night watching him. On some nights, she wandered to the old park near the bus terminal. There, the homeless gathered around fires, telling stories like defeated soldiers. One old woman sat knitting and said to her, "You're not a beggar. You carry the scent of failed justice." "What scent?" "The kind that comes from people who once had ideals and got spit on by the world." Rose said nothing. The woman handed her a piece of dry bread and kept knitting. Another time, seeking shelter from the rain, Rose stepped into a small church. She sat down on a wooden pew, head bowed, face in hands. A thin priest walked over. "Do you want to confess?" "No, Father. I just want to sit somewhere without being told to leave." "What do you need?" "I did the right thing, and the whole world treats me like a criminal." The priest looked at her, voice calm. "God doesn't punish those who speak the truth, but he also can't stop the cruelty of others. There's only one certainty." "What's that?" "God doesn't save those who dig up the past to destroy the present." Rose stood up. She thanked him, then walked away. She no longer believed in God. no longer believed in justice, not in the law, her colleagues, or her countrymen. Whenever someone asked if anyone still did, she only said one thing: "I'm fine. It's just that society doesn't tolerate people who do the right thing." She once tried another health clinic, hoping to get leftover medication. But when they saw the name Rose Parker, the nurse turned away, whispered something to the doctor, then said, "We don't have any spare meds. Please leave." The next day, Martha had a fever. No medicine. Rose used cold water to wipe her daughter's forehead. That night, she took off her coat and covered all 3 children with it, then sat outside the garage door. Drizzle fell. In her coat pocket was an old nylon rope. She tried tying a noose, tried pulling it tight. It didn't hurt. It didn't scare her. It just felt peaceful. Without her, maybe the kids would get placed in foster care, get real beds, real food. Maybe someone would pity them. Maybe they wouldn't be dragged down into hell with her. She stood up, looped the rope over an exposed metal beam. Wind blew through her torn coat. "One more step, Mom." Nick's voice rang out from inside the garage. He was talking in his sleep but shouting, "Mom, don't go. Don't be scared. I dreamed you were gone and I couldn't find you." The rope dropped to the ground. Rose collapsed, clutching her chest. She cried like a child, realizing for the first time their mother isn't coming back. When morning came, she gathered what strength she had left, washed her face, cleaned up the garage, cooked porridge using rice water she'd collected from a nearby diner. Every act, every movement was a vow: I will live. Not for me, for them. That day, Evan sent a message: "The evidence you gave me is secure, but don't send anything out blindly. I'm looking for a trustworthy journalist. Stay strong. Don't let them destroy what's left." Rose stared at the screen, hands trembling. She replied with one word: "Thanks." Thanks not for hope, but for the simple fact that one person, however small, hadn't turned away. Rain lingered through the first days of January. Rose's garage was now not just cold, but damp. The damp crept through the cement walls like a memory that refused to fade, dark, stubborn, and hopeless. She began to cough in fits, but there was no medicine to be found. Meanwhile, the 3 children woke earlier every day to beat others to the paper roots they relied on. Rose no longer joined them. She stayed in the garage, quietly preparing the only thing she still believed in: a full written report, detailed, factual, organized with every photo, every copy of the invitation, the carpet, the town hall, everything. She wrote it by hand. In pencil, no printer, no ink, neat lines, small script. Every line, a stab at the truth smothered in silence. 10 pages with photos and annotations. She placed them in a white envelope and wrote in black marker, "To Allison York, Investigative Desk, The Bridge Post, Washington, D.C." That name wasn't random. Allison had once authored a series exposing budget abuse in the southern states, forcing a regional senator to resign. Rose had only read about her in an old clipping, but it was enough. At dawn, she took a bus to the central post office, used every last coin to send the envelope as registered mail. "The package will arrive in 3 days, the clerk said. "Thank you. Would you like a receipt?" "No, I'm not sure I'll be alive to check it." 3 days. Rose lived like a condemned woman. Each time Evan's backup phone vibrated, her heart beat like war system, war drums. But no calls came from D.C., no messages, no emails. On the 4th day, she still waited. By the 5th, the only thing that arrived was a gust of wind that tore loose the sheet of tin covering the back of the garage. By the evening of the 6th day, just as Rose had almost abandoned hope, the TV in the auto wash across the street blared with the firm voice of a news anchor. "We've just received confirmation that former Springfield Mayor Herman Gallagher will hold a press conference addressing what he calls an organized smear campaign targeting him personally." Rose collapsed onto the garage floor. Not fear, not disappointment. No one responded. No one went public. And yet Herman was the first to speak. That afternoon, the press conference took place at City Hall. Herman wore a gray suit, a dignified demeanor, and sorrowful eyes. As someone who has dedicated his entire life to this city, it pains me to become the target of a coordinated defamation effort. Certain disgruntled individuals, dismissed for professional misconduct, have circulated fabricated documents, doctored images, and concocted a story that never happened. Below, reporters nodded and took notes. No one challenged him. No one asked for opposing evidence. Rose watched it all on Evan's old phone. She wanted to throw it to the ground, but didn't have the strength. On the screen, Herman continued, "I believe the truth will prevail. But I ask all members of the press and the people of Springfield to come together to defend the dignity of this city. Let us not allow bitter failures to erode the moral foundation of our community." Scattered applause rose. A few even shouted, "Well said, bravo." That very evening, a group of neighborhood residents began collecting signatures. A petition was circulated door to door throughout the lower district, the area near Rose's garage. "We, the residents of Springfield, object to the presence of an unidentified individual residing illegally, disturbing public order, and spreading misinformation that damages the dignity of our community." Within 24 hours, over 300 signatures were gathered. A copy of the petition was taped to the garage door, along with a black and white printout of Rose's face. She was labeled the Ghost of Lies. Aaron whispered, "Mom, what does this mean?" "I'm not sure," Rose replied softly. "But I think I just got erased from the city's map of decent people." The next day, the electricity was cut off completely. Not a rolling blackout, a full severing of the power supply. Someone had broken into the electric meter box and yanked out all the wiring. Rose went to the local police station to report it. The desk officer asked for her name, checked the system, then said, "We're not authorized to handle cases from individuals without a legal lease. But my property was vandalized. You don't have legal residency there. By law, you should vacate the area." She gave a dry laugh and walked out. "Vacate," she murmured. "Where would I even go?" That night, Rose lit a single candle in the pitch-black garage. Her 3 children sat huddled around her, each holding a cup of cold water in place of a meal. The bread box was empty. The last blanket had been split 4 ways. One child coughed softly, one slept sitting up. One no longer asked any questions. Rose stared at the flickering flame, at her children, at her own hands calloused, scarred from days spent collecting scrap, running, digging holes to hide evidence. She thought about the days she sat in an office wearing a white blouse, holding a tablet as she reviewed budget reports. It felt like another lifetime. "Kids," she whispered, "maybe tomorrow I'll have to go far away." All 3 looked up. None asked where, none cried. They understood. At an age when they should have been learning to spell, they had mastered the language of things left unsaid. "Can I go with you, Mom?" Nick asked. "No, I'll come back. When the sun rises again inside us." "But the sun doesn't rise inside people, Mom." "Then I'll find a way." The wind howled outside, rattling the sheet metal. The candle swayed. Rose pulled the 3 of them into her arms and murmured a prayer without a beginning or end. In her mind, one fragile hope remained, that the envelope she'd sent would reach the right hands. And even if it couldn't save her, it would ignite something bigger. Even if she lost everything, the truth had to find a place to live. On the 8th morning since she mailed the package to Washington, D.C., Rose woke to the sound of a ringing phone. It was Evan's spare device with a newly installed SIM card. He had said it was only for real emergencies, she answered. The screen showed an unfamiliar number. Country code +1, Washington, D.C. Hello, her voice was hoarse. She had slept. On the cold ground again. Good morning, Ms. Rose Parker. This is Allison York from the investigative desk at the bridge post. I received your materials. Rose fell silent, gripping the phone tightly. Sorry for calling so early, but can you confirm? Is everything in the package authentic? It is, every word. I spent the night reading and cross-referencing. Some of it is hard to believe, but strangely consistent with files I've long suspected. I'll need more verification from witnesses, and if possible, I'd like to interview you directly. Rose glanced around the garage. Her 3 children still slept. The walls were cold, the floor bare. Can you come to Springfield? No, but I can send someone. And if I have to, I'll come myself. Do you have a safe place to stay in the coming days? No, I'll figure something out. Please stay in contact. The call ended. Rose sat in stunned silence, not from fear, but because for the first time in months, she had heard a woman's voice that actually believed her. 3 days later, a young man appeared near the garage. He wore a dark brown coat, glasses, and introduced himself. I'm Mark York, Allison's cousin. She sent me to record a private interview, verify documents, and help keep you and your children temporarily safe. How do I know you're not working for Herman? Rose asked. Mark showed his Bridge Post press badge, complete with photo and a QR verification code. You don't have to trust me, but I read your story, and I believe if justice won't stand with you, then we will. She nodded. They filmed the interview at night in the garage's dark corner, using only a small flashlight and a phone. For recording, Rose recounted everything. The day she was fired, the red carpet she found, the kidnapping, the threats, the power cuts, the defamation. Mark said quietly, You know, you're not the only one Herman has ever threatened. But you're the first with the courage and the evidence to stand up. 3 days later, Rose received a single message from Allison. Tomorrow, 7:30 a.m. turn on Channel 4 and be ready. Rose didn't sleep that night. Her eyes shone like someone who had spent years at the bottom of a well, finally seeing sunlight reflected on the first drop of water. At 7:30 a.m., the old TV at the auto repair shop nearby blasted at full volume. People gathered. On screen, the show Underground Dispatch, famous for its explosive investigations, began. Host Allison York. Good morning, viewers. Today we bring you a story that sounds like it belongs in a movie. A fake ceremony, a discarded red carpet embroidered with the national seal, and one woman standing alone against an entire system. The screen cut to grainy footage from the garage. Rose appeared gaunt, but her gaze unwavering. Photos of the red carpet, the bloodstain, the unregistered invitations, all flashed across the screen. Even the video of the town hall with the strange dust outline matching the rug's shape was shown. The report continued. We verified with 3 independent sources. No official event took place on that day. The carpet was purchased through a furniture supplier that had subcontracted for the Springfield City Hall. The cost, $1.2 million, never disclosed publicly. Gasps echoed. The crowd around the TV grew larger. Someone whispered, she was telling the truth all this time. That afternoon, Rose received news. The Financial Crimes Division had officially reopened the Springfield redevelopment project file, the very case she was fired for whistleblowing. A local newspaper, once responsible for smearing her, published a full-page apology. We sincerely apologize to Rose Parker for publishing inaccurate information based on unverified sources. The editorial board takes full responsibility. At the CAF where Stephen Rubin once sat alone, now law students and young reporters gathered regularly. One of them said, Rose Parker's a legend now. She brought down a former mayor alone. She really is the woman of the rug. 3 days later, Rose received a call from a small firm that handled accounting for private businesses. The woman On the line spoke fast but clearly. We're looking for a lead accountant, not out of pity, but because we need someone who truly upholds integrity in the books. I read your story. We'd like to invite you for an interview. Rose paused for a moment, then smiled. Send me the address. I'll be there, but I'm bringing my 3 children with me. Even better, we've got a playroom for kids. That evening, Allison sent one final message. We're just getting started. Rose, today is a good day to rebuild your name. Rose placed a hand on Aaron's back and said softly, Do you remember when I told you I might have to go far? Away? Yes. Well, now we're going toward the light. 2 weeks after the Underground Dispatch segment aired, Springfield entered a media firestorm unlike anything it had ever seen. Former Mayor Herman Gallagher was urgently summoned. National news outlets flooded headlines with allegations of abuse, of power, embezzlement, and staging a fake state ceremony. Images of the red carpet, embroidered with the national seal, once discarded next to a trash bin, were now everywhere. Alongside it was a name, Rose Parker, the relentless woman. Letters came from all over. A law student in Savannah wrote, You've made me believe that law isn't just ink on paper. It's the blood and breath of those who refuse to surrender. The International Human Rights Organization, Equality for All, sent an official statement offering long-term educational support for all 3 of Rose's children. The program director, Mr. Carl Martin, called her directly. Miss Parker, we've read your full case. The organization has decided to grant full scholarships to Aaron, Martha, and Nick until they're 22 years old, including medical and living expenses. This is not charity. This is an investment in 3 brave young citizens. Rose stood silent on the phone, eyes burning not for herself, but for a future she once thought she had destroyed. Thank you. I don't know what else to say. Keep living the way you've lived. We're just helping someone who deserves it. That same week, the accounting firm Soul Balance offered Rose a position as their lead internal accountant. She met with the director in person, Anna Harris, a woman a few years older, silver hair streaked through half her head, eyes seasoned with experience. We need someone who doesn't bend the books under pressure. I've read all the articles. But what made me want to hire you wasn't the politics. Then what was it? The fact that you traded your hair for fever meds for your son, yet still folded that rug carefully, knowing the truth was woven into it. Rose smiled gently. From her first day at work, life for all 4 of them entered a new chapter. Goodbye to the damp garage, they moved into a small 3rd-floor apartment in the Riverside complex. Not luxurious, but it had power, hot water, and an east-facing window. Martha shouted when she saw the private bathroom. Aaron, I can take a shower without using the public faucet. Nick bounced on the new mattress. Mom, this bed doesn't make mouse sounds. The apartment was small but clean. That first night, Rose spent hours mopping the floor, scrubbing the walls, and laying a white cloth on the dining table. Then she opened the last box. Inside was the red carpet, clean, folded, free of dust and blood. A group of volunteers had helped restore it as a symbol of history. The fabric smelled faintly fresh. The gold embroidery no longer smeared. Aaron watched his mother spread it under the wooden table in the living room. You're still keeping it. I'll keep it until I know I'm no longer just a shadow of the truth. Martha asked, Mom, why don't you sell it? It must be worth a lot. Rose sat beside her daughter and stroked her hair. Some things have no price because they prove I didn't give up. Their upstairs neighbor, Mrs. Teresa Marsh, a retired schoolteacher, walked by and saw the rug. She leaned on her cane, squinting. Lovely quality piece. Where'd you buy it? Rose stood up and smiled. I didn't buy it. It's honor won back with truth. The rug lay there in the middle of the modest room, like a red thread stitching together a soul once torn. Herman Gallagher did not fare as well. In June, The Springfield Criminal Court held a public trial for Herman Gallagher, former deputy executive of Castellano Construction. Outside the courthouse, dozens of citizens gathered, holding signs, "Justice for Rose Parker. Public funds aren't for criminal ceremonies." Inside, Rose sat on the witness stand, facing the man who had destroyed her career and life. She wore a simple white blouse and held a copy of the threatening letter, undeniable evidence. When the prosecutor played the audio recording, the room fell silent. Herman's voice echoed, this time as his own damning sentence. "You want your kid to stay alive? Don't play hero." When the defense tried to argue that Mr. Gallagher was framed and didn't sign any of the financial documents, the judge simply asked, then who authorized the payment to his niece's company? Who approved the emergency cash withdrawal 3 days before the ceremony? Who ordered the finance office files to be cleared at 3 a.m.? Herman lowered his head. The final sentence, 12 years in prison, a permanent ban from public office, and seizure of all assets in his name and any affiliated shell companies. But the heaviest punishment wasn't on paper. It was watching his accomplices turn on each other for reduced sentences. Watching the media dismantle every accomplishment he had ever bragged about. Watching his niece sob on live television. "I didn't know anything. He said it was just a charity project." And finally, the calm in Rose's eyes as she walked out of the courtroom. No triumph, just peace. One Sunday, Rose and her 3 children sat having breakfast in their new kitchen. Simple toast, but for the first time, there was butter. Aaron whispered, "Mom, if you really left that night, we'd probably never get to eat breakfast like this." "I know, but I didn't." "Leave, I heard your voice. I don't remember calling." "Maybe it was just a dream." "Dreams can save people too, you know," Nick was drawing. On the paper, a picture of his mom standing on a red carpet, the U.S. flag behind her, and the sun rising overhead. Martha looked at Rose, held her hand. "I told my teacher that. My mom is a hero," Rose chuckled. "No, I'm just a mom who refused to shut up." "Well, that's what makes you a hero." The doorbell rang. A package. Inside, a glass frame, and within it, a certificate that read, "Rose Parker, in recognition of outstanding contribution to public budget transparency." She placed it on the shelf next to a small bouquet of flowers from Mrs. Teresa upstairs. Then, she stepped out onto the balcony. The sun was rising, and this time, it rose inside her too. The story of Rose Parker reminds us that justice doesn't always come from the courts, but from the unshakable determination of a single person who refuses to bow to wrongdoing. When the truth is buried by power, it is persistence, motherhood, and integrity that light the way. Though alone and defamed, Rose never gave up. And in the end, she not only reclaimed her honor, she restored a community's faith in what's right. Truth, though delayed, always finds a voice.